Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about this knife right here. It is a classic American-made knife, pre-1940 from a great American company. And very excited to show this knife to you. It's a wonderful knife to begin with, but also I get a lot of questions about premium knives. How do you know a knife is premium? Isn't this other knife just as good as a premium knife? Those type of things. And this is a perfect knife to answer some of them questions. So in the upcoming video, we're not only going to show the knife, we're going to explain a little bit why this is such a fantastic knife. And it is a premium knife. And I hope that you stick around and check out the video for that. It's going to be really interesting. All right, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Hi, all my viewers. Really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for all your support, your likes, your shares, your comments, and just watching the video. I really appreciate y'all from the bottom of my heart. And just enjoy that relationship and community that we're in here looking at these fantastic knives, because you know, if you love knives, really you're probably the only one that you know that loves knives. So that's why videos like these are important. But we're going to be looking at this knife today. Okay. Oh man, this is a Walden Knife Company knife from 1905 to 1916 is when this knife was made, and it's just a fantastic knife. Walden Knife Company produced a really fine knife. By the way, keen cutters, highly coveted by knife collectors. Exclusively Walden made the keen cutter knives, but they also made knives under their own name, of course. And so this is one of them. Let's take a look at this real quick. Walden Knife Company, New York. That is the tang stamp. And what you have here is a 3.5-inch equal end penknife. There's the pen blade. You have genuine Stag scales with a nice and unusual nickel silver shield there. We'll talk about that a little bit. You've got nickel silver bolsters with the thread on them, brass liners, and just gorgeous. A lot of wear on this Stag, but it is genuine Stag. You can tell that. Just absolutely fantastic knife. Great action on this knife, as you might expect. Look at the transitions are perfect. It's just so tight there. Fantastic. There's your pin blade. Oh, what is that? I just now noticed that right there. What is that? That's some kind of oil or something on there. I don't know. That's the first time I noticed that. Anyhow, that's incredible. I just now noticed it. Again, you see the really tight precision assembly on this knife. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And we're going to you know what, I'll give you the history of this knife first, and then we'll talk a little bit about why it's a premium knife, and how you can tell the difference between premium knives and knives that aren't premium, and just some of the differences about that. All right, so Walden Knife Company. Really interesting story about Walden Knife Company. Although it's not completely unique, but it is a very interesting story. In 1870, 18 employees were fired by New York Knife Company for playing baseball during lunch. And what initially happened is the employees got in a disagreement because the CEO didn't like the fact that they were playing in competitive baseball leagues at lunch. And so he put a stop to that dispute with the employees, who rightly said it's our lunch hour, we do what we want. Led to those employees that wouldn't stop playing in being terminated from the company. So those employees promptly went down the street. I have no idea what this little thing is. That's his first time I noticed that on there. So it is a stain, but I haven't cleaned this knife up either. So this knife is just the way I got it. Anyhow, so they went right down the street and started making knives. Set up in a motor factory, a factory that made motors. They rented space and started making knives. In 1874, or by 1874, they had incorporated. And by 1880, they had 125 employees. So they're doing really, really well at making these knives. By 1891, they were at 250 employees. This is a good-sized knife company. Okay, 100 employees was a good-sized knife company. So by 1911, they had 600 employees and made 2,500 different models of knives. So just a tremendous success story with this company. And finally, in 1902, E.C. Simmons, which was a hardware company out of St. Louis, who heavily emphasized knives because of their profitability. They don't cost a lot, and you can sell them for a lot. And so the profit margin on knives, was very enticing to E.C. Simmons to sell them. He promoted them. He encouraged his salesmen to sell a lot of knives, and heavily promoted that. So anyhow, in 1902, E.C. Simmons takes controlling interest in the company. In 1920, E.C. Simmons merges with Winchester. They enter into an agreement. Winchester Arms had a massive nationwide network of sales network, and that's what E.C. Simmons was after. Winchester wanted to get in the knife business, and so Winchester got Walden Knife Company, and E.C. Simmons got the nationwide network. And so for a couple years, maybe up to 1925, these knives were still produced, but what ended up happening was Winchester shut the factory down, removed all of its equipment, and moved it up to their home location. And so around 1925, the Walden knives quit being produced. And then, of course, in 1940, Winchester just quit making knives. Very sad day for knife enthusiasts right there. But fascinating history on these knives. A lot of people will tell you that E.C. Simmons King Cutter, when the King Cutter knives were made by E.C. Simmons, so very collectible knife, and a lot of people will tell you that E.C. Simmons started using Walden in 1902 when they took control of the company. That's not true. Okay, so there's letterhead that we have showing that E.C. Simmons was buying Walden knives from 1874. So almost as soon as they incorporated, E.C. Simmons was buying knives from them, and that only accelerated over time. It was around 1980 that Keen Cutter, E.C. Simmons embraced the Keen Cutter logo or brand and put it on their knives. And that's because Keen Cutter was their premium brand of anything they sold, whether it was a shovel, pick, or a knife. And so sometimes I think people get confused by that, but yeah, they bought Walden knives almost from the very start of the company. And let's look at why these knives are so special. Okay, so right away, if you see Stag on a knife, it is most likely a premium quality knife. Stag has always been and still is one of the more expensive handle materials that you can put on a knife. So genuine Stag, and I'm not talking about bone Stag, but I'm talking about genuine Stag, is a sure indication that it's a premium knife. You're just not going to make a $3 knife and put Stag on it. So that's a really good indicator right there that a knife is premium. Another thing is we know that Walden used crucible steel coming from England. So they imported English steel, crucible steel, into the United States in ingots and then hand forged these knives. So old catalogs and information that comes from E.C. Simmons in Walden indicates that Walden used these kinds of manufacturing processes. So they did not stamp their blades, which in the 1880s and 1890s, stamping really was just catching on. A lot of the old companies just hand forged their knives. They didn't invest in the stamping material. But as companies developed and became new, they adopted these stamping presses that would stamp blades out a lot more efficiently than you could hand forge them. So those type of blades, hand forged blades, you can usually tell if you look at this blade right here and the actual geometry of it. You can see how it's not really completely I'm not trying to equal. It's very slightly off in different places, and that's from the hand forging process. And so they're not as when you look at this knife right here, you see how these are just really straight lines, and that's because this is just stamped out. And so on these knives, you can if you look closely, at first look you may not be able to see it, but when you look closely you can see the little deviations in the blades, and that's from the hand forging process. And that is another way to tell quality. But one of the easiest ways is this is an opposite end knife. So you have a blade on each side. And when you have that, you have to push this blade over some so that it'll fit down between the main blade. Right here you can see a spacer, a brass spacer is pushing this blade over to give it clearance from the main blade. Now, in a lot of knives, this spacer would actually show up on the other side as two liners. So they just put two liners in here to push the blade over. But the better way to do it which you have a lot smoother look here. Just one scale on there, one liner, and you have the spacer right here. Let me zoom in on this real quick. So you have the spacer right here. You can see it coming over and hitting the back of the back spring. Notice this is highly magnified right now, and look at you just really can't even see a gap there. Okay, really can't even see a gap. And here is a Puma, a German Puma, which to their credit, they used a spacer, right? And this knife probably dates from the 70s probably. Nice knife, well-made knife, but if you look at the difference here, snap in, look at the gap you see between the spacer and the back spring. Just very little attention to the detail. Even though I like this construction better than the models that would run this as another liner all the way down, it's just not executed very well. And when you look at this, you put it up next to the Walden, look at the difference in the precision on that spacer on these two knives. And that's an indication of a really well-made knife. Here's another one. This is a Warrenclyffe, this opposite end blade. So you're going to have that same problem. How do they solve that problem of pushing that blade over? And this is a New York Knife Company knife who made a super knife. And again, look at the tight tolerances that you have right here as the back spring just bumps right up against that. No gap whatsoever. I'll show you another example of something that you can do. This is a Queen. It's a new knife, produced 2023 probably. And it's an opposite end knife. So you have that same problem. You have to push a smaller blade over. And how did the Chinese manufacturer of this knife accomplish that? Well, what they did is they used the second back spring. You can see it run up, and they rolled that second back spring all the way over into to here to push the smaller blade right here over. That's not really a bad, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? It's not really a bad option. A lot of American manufacturers, will have this back spring and it'll end here, and they have another liner pushing that little blade over, which, looks horrendous. I should have pulled an example out for you, but anyhow, yeah. That's just different ways that you can handle that problem. The point is, this is finely manufactured. Really interesting. You have, like, this shield is interesting. So it looks like a bomb shield, but it also has that tip on it, like you see on a bow tie shield or a hot dog shield, as RJ calls them. And it's kind of a combination of the two. And this knife it's a KO, let me look at my notes, I'm cheating, guys. It's a KO 3533. So that's the keen cutter designation of this knife. Keen Cutter made a knife exactly like this with that designation, but that's this exact knife right here. So, Walden is making knives for E.C. Simmons. They also put their name on this knife, sold it separately as a Walden knife. I also call these knives sleeper knives, and that's because this knife right here, it is made just as well, and in a lot of cases better than a case knife. A case knife coming from 1905 would cost you hundreds and hundreds of dollars, especially in this shape, which is in excellent shape. This knife cost me $34. So these Walden knives are what I call sleepers, and they're great knives if you can pick them up in good shape. You know, just great knives to grab and have a very high quality knife. Just fantastic, man. So excited to have that knife. Look at that. Great background for that too, isn't it? Little bear in the woods and a stag handle on the knife. Very manly. Very manly. All right. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it informative. And I very deeply appreciate you all checking the videos out, your comments, your likes, your shares. And we'll see you in the next video.